So that was a previous one, the worthless one. Not quite. It's worthless. It's not quite there yet. Just a bit more balance into the tones, but you can see it's working. You know, this is a thing of mine, right? And I see it all the time where people will sort of put figures in front of backgrounds, and it looks like they don't belong. And that's, you know, this bit here. You see it there. It's the meeting of tones that determine, you know, it's getting along with, you know, its background or each other or surroundings. And it's that, for me, that's the trick to it, to make it look like it belongs in the play, particularly when the environment is having so much to say about this face. You know, the reason why that's lit is because there's a window here and you can see how the frame is cast on the background. So it needs that, and it's gentle. It's gentle. It's a gentle process, and the danger is not to go too far with it, obviously, because otherwise you start smoothing it out and all the rest of it. But yeah, so it's nearly there. I'm going to draw this guy. I know something about me showing. I always show him at the beginning. This guy is a Pinterest guy, so you can find him on there if you want a reference. Because this is what I'm going to talk about feelings. Someone just said that they respond to the way they feel about the subject, which is exactly what it should be. Because capturing that feeling, the thing that you feel, is the thing that should be embedded within the portrait, and in turn will then pass on to the viewer. You know, you've got to capture the emotional element of it to make it move the viewer as much as it moves you. The beauty of it is that we will focus primarily on the feeling of it and eliminate everything else. You know, so in the drawing there'll be things that are unnecessary. This is the thing about only drawing what's important. Only drawing what moves you is what's important. And then you then condense it so that the viewer can then see it more clearly. This is the thing about, as artists, our job is to reveal the beauty within reality. That's what we're supposed to do. So if it's not driven by emotions, it's driven by something else, which is just technical replication. But then all you're doing then is showing somebody what they can already see, albeit, you know, if they weren't in the same room with the guy or whatever, it's a bit difficult. But nevertheless, you're still showing them what they could already see if they were with the person. So what's the point in that? That's the question. But for me, the feeling thing is, you know, the way you feel about the face. It affects everything. You know, it affects the way that I start the drawing. It affects the marks that I make. Everything is affected by the way I feel about it. And the hard thing, I think, is to let that happen. You know, let yourself get into that connection. And it's like Robert and Rice said about you know, you've got to capture what moves you as quickly as you can. And not forget what it is that moved you to paint it in the first place or draw it in the first place. So that's the objective, really. Capture that. You know, I just see. Look at this. So when I talk about early starts with people, right, I talk about finding the anchors basically. But my anchors are these. This isn't where I start by. I've got the eyes more or less starting to manifest. I've got the top of the ear starting to show, and the sideburn just dropping down there. I've got the end of the nose. I've got the mouth into there. That, for me, is the most important part about this. And I've said this before when people send me stuff, and I always say, show me the first marks that you make. And normally they are, or even worse, it's a circle and it's a square and it's a triangle and it's God knows what else. You know, it's a geometry lesson. You know what I mean? But the thing is that this is my visceral response to something. This is where the whole emotion is contained, and it starts to then be captured within that response. So this is what I'm saying about the feeling thing. If you allow that feeling to drive the way you respond, then you'll capture the emotional element of it far better than if you try and draw it first and then worry about the life force later. You know, I mean, people draw first and then worry about the likeness and forget all about the fact that it's got to have an emotional vibe to it. You know, you've got to capture the emotion of this face. They forget all about that. That's just a lucky side effect sometimes. Most of the time, it's not even a consideration. Most of the time, it's completely unsuccessful. And most of the time, it's not important. What's important is that they draw every button on the shirt to a lot of people. And that's just not going to cut it if you're talking about emotions. I've never felt emotionally moved by buttons on a shirt. Oh, I'm just overwhelmed by the buttons. I mean, I have been overwhelmed by people's sheer skill. You know what I mean? It's like some people have amazing. I just saw one this morning. They were painting the wing on a butterfly, and there was only one hair in the brush. You know, just I'm going blind just looking at it. You know, not even doing it. It's like that Chinese stitch. You know, the one that's supposed to send people blind. Who you know, the seamstress would go blind using it. It's like that. But as I said, I'm moved in terms of overwhelming respect for their skill, but I'm not moved in terms of the subject. You know, feeling about the subject in any particular way. So, and that's, I think, that's where it all falls apart. You know, it's got to be technique. It's got to be about skill. You've got to practice. And all that falls apart because it doesn't address the real thing. You know, the thing that machines can't do. You know, the connect with another human thing. It doesn't address that. And if we can't do that as artists, if we can't connect with another human and then manifest that feeling, I don't know. I mean, that's probably the number one skill that we've got as artists, as creatives. Probably as most people have got it, but certainly as creatives, that's the number one skill, to be able to connect and respond. But everybody knows it. They're too busy trying to colour in. You know, somebody said this morning, "What do I need for realistic drawing?" My response was a projector and some tracing paper, because if that's what your goal is, then well, as I said, just trace it, make an outline, get really good at colouring in, and that's it. There's nothing more complicated than that. Trying to be realistic with freehand is a hard thing to do. And it takes great skill and lots of practice. But if you just want to make copies of photographs, I would say the best way to do it is to just use tracing paper. Get a blow up of the actual. There is a guy that does courses, and he supplies, and he calls them I don't know if he calls it the templates or the tracing or something like that. Actually, that's what he refers to it as, because he knows you're going to just trace over it, and then the landscapes mostly, but he knows you're going to trace over it and then colour it in. But that, I think, is the general vibe that people think it should be. You know, a general consensus that it's just about making copies, and so it's just a colouring in exercise. But the thing is that once you connect to the subject, once you feel that subject, and things like this, I mean, you can't help but connect to it. You know what I mean? You can't help but connect to the face. You know what I mean? I don't know where it is on Pinterest, but have a look. You'll find it. Type "crusty old men in hats" or something, and you'll find it. But you can't help but connect to that character. That's the thing. So let that connection drive the way you respond to it. It doesn't have to be an exact replica of it. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to capture the essence of this guy, which is really, I suppose, implied and suggested in more than anything else. You know, squinty eyes and all that. I'm trying to do another one today because I'm going to be I might be out of action tomorrow. I don't know yet. Fixing my car basically. So I might not be on. I might get up early and do one in the early doors. But I think the rest of the day, if the weather's nice, I'll play in my car. So, which is why I say, well, I'm doing one now. I shouldn't really talk about something like that. I think I'm trying to keep it to. I was thinking the other day, I must keep these serious. I must make these things not chatty. You know what I mean? Not chatty, not personal life stuff. You know what I'm having for a tea and all that sort of thing. It's not good, is it? It's not professional. Well, I've tried everything else, and YouTube just completely ignores me. So why would it make any difference if I talk about what I'm having for tea or fixing my car? It doesn't, does it? I mean, somebody did say about the previous one this morning about me not showing the reference. I don't show the reference, right? It's as simple as that. If you want drawing lessons, Poco and all those sort of things, they'll give you drawing lessons. If you want to know how I draw, it's nothing to do with how I draw, right? It's to do with why I draw. Listen to what I say, and you'll understand what I'm about. But if you just want to draw along with me or something like that, then no, find somebody else. Somebody said that, if you showed the picture, you get lots more views. Well, yeah, I would, but I get up views of the people that aren't going to get what I'm about. So why do I want to talk to them? They do need to talk to watch Poco, but I'm not. It's not me. I'm something else. I do it in a different way. Like I say, if you just think it's about copying faces or how to draw or whatever, then you're missing the point. I don't think the rubber this morning was doing that much good. It wasn't, on that other one. I've gone out and bought, a new rubbers specifically, thinking that the other ones were dead, but they weren't. they weren't dead, but they were no worse than. I mean, they weren't great, but they were no worse than the new ones. And I've got loads of new ones now. So it's like you can't win, can you? Can't win. But I would say that because the rubber, I know I'm talking about doing now, but because the rubbers have less of a rubbing effect, a raising effect, and they do act a little bit like, this one certainly does, and the previous ones act a little bit more like a blending tool. You get a kind of it helps without it being too much of a blending tool. It does help to shape things, to shape the way that the tones behave. So the 6.5 does. There are times when I need to remove. I want to remove, but I can't. And so I have to. I tell you what, I do notice that because it doesn't remove things. It's got electronized hat. I'm going to try and just imitate it by doing sort of breaks within it. But I'm not going to do it now because it needs me to just slow down a bit and think about the shapes. So yeah, it's not a problem. It's not a major problem, I don't think. It's just that it would be nice sometimes to make to get back to the white of the paper, for instance. But it's not possible. Maybe it's the paper. To be honest, I think it might be the paper that's causing the problem. It won't release. It marks too much the. the surface. The charcoal gets too embedded within the surface. Yeah, so as I said, it's a feeling. You know, it's the feeling of it, regardless of the execution. It's the feeling of it. You know what I mean? It's the feeling of his bulldog eyes. You know, it's all that it's that what we're after, and that in a way is what is the essence of this face, and that's you know that's what it makes me feel like, is that squint and that you know that tash in his bottom lip that goes up in there, and you know you can see it, can't you? It's just, and that's without a few lines. This is the thing. I'm catching the mic. Sorry about that. And that's the thing. So we've got to really override the need to draw things, override the need to make a copy of things. You know, it doesn't need that. I mean, that ear, for instance, I could probably leave that ear as it is. I don't really need to do any more to the ear than that. But it's up to you. I mean, it varies. I mean, sometimes it depends on the subject. You know, this is the whole point. The subject should move you in different ways. Different subjects move in different ways. Different faces you have a different response to different faces. I think the copying thing, you know, the making replicas of faces thing, comes from like a commission kind of mentality. You know, you're going to draw what people ask you to draw, or paint what people ask you to paint. And consequently, you're going to find something in it that you can hang on to. You know, basically, you're going to hang on to the doing, the skill, the technique, and that's your definition of success. But I don't know. I think I don't do commissions. I draw people that I ask if I can draw them. So I've got friends and acquaintances that I'll ask if I can paint them or draw them. But then I don't accept commissions. So I have to instigate it. If ever I did, and people are put off by it as well. So if they ask me, I'll say, yeah, no problem, I'll do it. I'm going to set up you'll either sit for me or I'll set up the photography or whatever. But you can't just give me old wedding photos and let me, for me to make some nasty copy of. And they don't, then they sort of drop out after that. It gets expensive, I suppose, and it's time consuming, but it's the only way to do it. I've got more respect for myself than just to make a copy of it, say, an old wedding photograph. So I'd never do that. I think the other side to it as well is if, when you saw me do the early start thing, and if that early start encompasses all the qualities that you're after, half the problem is keeping that, because that's the dilemma. You'll start to work it too much and it'll start looking more like a deliberate thing rather than a responsive thing. But because it captures the essence so quickly, you're almost, as I said, you're trying not to lose that, but you're almost completing, you're almost there, because that's the objective, is to capture the essence of somebody. So if that's what your early marks do, it's only, if you've done it properly, it's not a lot of work to get to where it should be. And I was doing it with, there was a guy that I was doing it with, and I said to him, it'll take 3 months to learn to make portraits. But in the first lesson, in the 2 hour that we did it, he literally did a great portrait straight away. And he got some skills. He got like the usual sort of drawing skills. Made portraits before, kind of, but he got basic craft skills, and he after he learnt to respond, which was the first thing that we sort of nailed down, and then some basic structural stuff, the finding the shapes and using tone to do it, all that resulted in a real rapid portrait. I mean, he'd done it so quickly. I think he was amazed himself that it happened so quickly. But that's the way it should be. I mean, you can spend hours and hours and hours, I say, on the components of the face and the detail of the face, and sometimes it's irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference. I've said before that, if you've caught the essence of somebody, no matter what you do after that, it won't make any difference. And that again is one of those. I don't know, how does that work then? Because a lot of people will think it's about the smoothness of the tones or the detail that you've put into something. That's what defines a great portrait. It's when it's done. It's when you've got all the detail. But it's never done. It's never, if that's your mentality to it. If it's all about the detail, it's never done. It's never detailed enough, is it? It's never smooth enough. Your tones are never smooth enough, and all that kind of stuff. And you get sucked into that, and it's just nightmare. It's a nightmare. And there's, in that way, failure lies. That's the truth of it, because you're gonna punish yourself over the fact that it's not quite detailed enough. It's a bit like selling. You can never sell it cheap enough because somebody along will come and do it even cheaper. If you can never do it detailed enough, because somebody will come along and do it even more detailed. And then you get to a point where, as I said the other week, that young woman from China, and she does her work, their watercolors are so detailed that you can only do 2 a year because it takes that long to do them. And she really was upset about it. She was thinking about stopping because she could only do 2 a year. It's a bit silly, really, but you kind of feel for her. My comment would have been, well, stop making them so detailed and just enjoy what she clearly enjoyed doing it, but it took her so long to do it. So it kind of defeats the whole object, isn't it? I wouldn't crucify myself over trying to make it super detailed again, because I did. You've seen the donkey thing. I did that guy in a donkey and trap, and I was drawing the ropes on the that held the harness on the donkey, and the baskets. There was basket weave and in the trap. I was drawing all that for weeks and weeks and weeks, and just not. And at the end of the day, it was just a copy of a photograph. A good copy of a photograph. That's all it was. But I'd never get back there again. I'd never go back to that. There's just nothing in that for me. Anyway, I think this is just about done. I'm going to spend a bit of time on getting the lettering right on his hat there, but not too much time. I don't want to make it a big deal, but I'm going to just start to make shapes. But so that's it. It's about how you feel about something driving the way you respond to something. So it's really important that you move to do what you do. Not a case of I'm going to do it because I've got the skills, or I'm going to do it because it'll impress people, or because I'll be able to get into this exhibition, or whatever. You just got to do it. None of those things matter. You've got to be moved to do something, be inspired by a subject, connect with the subject. If you're working from photographs, learn to connect. I mean, these kind of, in fact, I would say, and I've said this before about, progression, find crusty old men like this, because they're dead easy to draw and dead easy to connect with, because you can see the character, and draw as many as you can. And I guarantee that you will improve exponentially because of this, sort of leaning into the subject, the connection with the subject, and choosing a subject that's easy. Don't keep drawing the same one, though. I've said that before. Keep, using different. I know it's just get on Pinterest. There's loads of them, and just keep drawing them, and you'll progress, as I say, exponentially. Try not to draw either. I've just seen somebody this morning drawing, doing that, and that's just, old school, man. We don't want to be doing that. It just, you gotta. This is part of the responsive feeling thing. You're different to other people. I'm different to other people. That's the thing. So we got to do our thing that we have to bring that into the world, not somebody else's vision of how it should be. Despite them all saying this is great drawing, great draftsmanship, all that kind of thing. Just no, that's not really where you want to be. I mean, you want to be like that if you want to get in with the crowd, but I'm not. We're just doing this for our own pleasure, aren't we? So let's just do exactly that. Let's enjoy it and not beat ourselves up about the fact that it should be like this or it should be like that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm done with this. I'm going to fix the tones a little bit on the face, but I'm going to also just sort the lettering without it being too overworked, drawn lettering type of thing. Okay. I'm using shopbought charcoal, but I put it into the clutch. I think I've said this before. I was going to use that piece, which is the homemade hazelwood, and the big difference is the thickness of the. I've got used to actually working with charcoal that thick, so putting it into the clutch, it's literally the same thickness. You can see I've even put black tape over it to make it feel like the surface of the charcoal, but that's the reason why it's in the clutch. It's partly as well because I started with a big piece. I've just broken little pieces off it to slot in because I can't. This is another thing. I like it to be an average length when it comes out of the tin. Let me get one that's come out of the tin. When it comes out of the tin, it comes out that length. So that's kind of what I'm working with now, the same length. So there is just peculiarities in that, the way I work is nothing. I'm not suggesting that's how you should do it. I just like the thicker. I like it to be able to spin around in my hand. I like to be able to clutch it. I don't want to be able to have to do that with it. It's just as I said, my idiosyncrasies really. Okay. I'll just give it 5 minutes and then I'll sort the let me my eyes rest a bit, and I'm going to sort the lettering on his cap. And if I'm back on tomorrow morning, I'll probably finish it by there, so you'll see how it turned out. Not a lot different to this actually, because you can see the the light and the way it feels. You can see this kind of something happening there in between his monotony lip there, and then underneath there's a shadow there, and it's. But the point is that there are only certain things that matter. You've got to focus on those. Let those things be the motive, the emotional elements of it, and you can get by with you literally shortcut everything. It's just suggestion and application. It's just like that here. It's just suggestion, but it has to, even though it's not drawn properly and all the rest of it, it belongs in terms of relationship. It belongs tonally. You know what I mean? That's the important thing, which is why you've got that feeling of its form. Somebody was talking about realism. You've got to understand about how light creates form, and that, in a way, overrides any execution. You can, as I say, trace it, project it, and really good at colouring in. But that's just replication. But understanding about how the light creates form, but not understanding, it's actually seeing how the light creates the form. That's the trick to it. That's the trick to realism. Realism is about light. It's not about detail. Anyway, I'll love you and leave you, and as I say, I'll catch you tomorrow morning probably now.